Shall we meet our first guest, ladies and gentlemen? Oh. Why not? Why not? It's the right answer, by the way. My first guest was discovered at the age of just 16 with a face and a figure that made her famous the world over, and she became known internationally as the world's first supermodel. It was christened the face of 1966 and appeared regularly on the front cover of Vogue magazine. Since then, she has been a singer, a television presenter and an actress. One of the best known faces and one of the best known names in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Twiggy. I didn't know what to expect when I met you just before we came on.
Gosh.
You look gorgeous.
Thank you very much.
No, I'm just going to get that out of the way now.
For a young man like you, that's very kind.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Listen, you were the face, as I was saying in the introduction, Twiggy, of the Swinging Sixties.
I was.
You know, world famous at 16. And it kind of started in the chair in a hairdresser's, didn't it?
It did, yes. I was sent there to have my hair done to do a test shot. The people thought I was going to be too small for modelling, which I was, because most models are 5'11". And the hairdresser saw me, and he rang his photographer and said, I've got a girl here I want you to see, I want to do my new haircut. So I went to see him. He said, I'd never been in front of a camera. He sat me in front of a camera. And I already had all those painted eyelashes and things that I did myself. Not at school. I was good. I didn't go to school. And he took some test shots.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have the short hair. I had long hair.
At that time.
And he rang the hairdresser and said, she's photogenic, do the cut. So I had my hair cut in that little boy bob. He hung the picture in his salon. I went back to school. And a big journalist in London for one of the national papers saw it and said, I love the haircut, but who's the girl?
Yeah.
And that was when my life changed.
Look at the photo. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, just want to share this iconic picture. I mean, how beautiful you look.
But I was a baby.
Yeah. And you're only 16.
Actually, this year it's 40th anniversary. It's my 40th anniversary of being in the business, yeah.
40 years?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but what a gorgeous photo, and quite unconventional. You were skinny at a time when models were curvaceous.
Yeah.
You were a working class girl when models were generally kind of considered posh.
I was the first working class models, because most girls became models if they were middle or upper class.
Why?
And they modelled because it was something to do when you left school, and then they'd meet their rich husband, get married, and that was how it was. Then I came along.
And you changed all of that.
But you know, the 60s changed all that. Suddenly you could be working class and do things. Yeah. And actually, there were a lot of, in the late 60s, there were a lot of upper class or well-spoken actors who suddenly lost their accents and became much more working class, because that was like the fashion.
Yeah, the Mockney.
You know, Michael Caine was from that era. He was very working class, and you know.
And what about the party scene? I mean, did you let your hair, well, what left of your hair down?
I didn't really, because I mean, not that I'm a killjoy, you know, but I was really working hard. I mean, there is this thing that models don't work hard. The hours are really long, and I was travelling the world. I only did photographs. I didn't do catwalk, because in those days, if you were a top model, you were a photographic model. So I spent my time between New York and Paris and London, Milan, and it was great.
But I was reading about you at one point going to a party in LA, and I got the impression you were kind of shy almost, surrounded by all these faces.
When I first went to America, I was 17. And that whole thing had happened to me, which was extraordinary. And there was one party that I think Sonny and Cher threw for me. Sorry, I didn't mean to name drop, but they did.
No, it's okay, we'll catch them.
And suddenly there was this roar of a motorbike, and I turned round, and this guy kind of came up onto the grass, because it was in their back garden, their big, huge lawn, and he jumped off, and it was Steve McQueen.
Great.
And he came over and asked me to dance, and I was so shy, I said no.
You turned him down?
I did. But I was only 17.
Yeah, but he's Steve McQueen. No excuse for that kind of carry on. But I mean, that's kind of gives us an example of the kind of thing that you could have got involved in, but you kind of kept your powder dry, as it were.
I did, really. I think I had a very loving mum and dad, and my dad was from the north of England, and very sensible. And I kind of listened to him, you know?
And yet it was 66, and we talk about swinging London, and you know, even the Austin Powers sort of feel to it, as it's been remembered in more recent years. You were the face, and England won the World Cup, hadn't they, that year? So
They
there was a
did.
great sense of England resurgence and what have you. And the Beatles were the music. Did you pal around with the Beatles? Were they your big fans?
I met Paul McCartney in 1968 because a certain gentleman called Ken Russell wanted me to do a film, and
Movie
he wanted,
director, yeah.
Brilliant director who did Women in Love and The Devils, and eventually we got to do The Boyfriend, which was my first film in 1970. I did that with Ken, but he had another project that he wanted Paul to do the music. So suddenly, at the age of 17 and a half, I had to go and have a business lunch with Paul McCartney, whereas 3 years before I'd been one of the screaming teenagers. So I had to be very sensible and kind of sit there, and I had to go out and bite my finger at the end because I couldn't believe that I'd actually met him. But we're still very close friends. I love him to bits. And
You struck up a friendship for life then, did you?
for life friendship,
And Linda and the whole lot.
Yeah,
then, through the years.
absolutely. Linda was one of my best friends, and I loved her to bits.
You mentioned the Boyfriend, the movie you were in. We've a picture of you in that film, because a lot of people will say Twiggy model, end of story, for those who didn't realise that you went on. But you were only a model for a short amount of time.
I only modelled for 4 years, and then that shot from The Boyfriend, I met, as I said, Ken Russell. He cast me in The Boyfriend.
Yeah.
And from The Boyfriend, I went on, you know, I decided at the ripe old age of 20 that I was going to...
pushing on at that point.
I know, I thought it was that. That this is what I wanted to do. So I did records, I had my own TV series. I then went on, which is my proudest achievement, I think, is going on Broadway.
Yeah.
I did a big musical called My One and Only for 18 months.
And you loved that, you
singing,
adrenaline of all that.
dancing. And I was scared, you know, I'd never been on a stage before.
Yeah.
And when my co-star, Tommy Tune, who was in The Boyfriend, rang me and said, I've got this project, you're going to come over, we're going to... And I thought he meant a film. And I said, oh, yeah, when do we start filming? He said, no, it's on Broadway. I said, you must be mad. I can't do that. And he said, there's no such word as can't.
Yes,
Get
yeah.
over here.
It's a fair point.
But I really learned so much. When you play 8 times a week on a Broadway stage in front of 2,000 people every night and end up with them cheering, I mean, you know, you learn, and it was magical.
I just want to talk about the modelling thing now, because the name Twiggy, I presume, was a stick-related...
Legs.
Stick legs, like skinny little
They're
thing.
under there somewhere.
You and me both, Twiggy. But in terms of what you were kind of against the tide, in the sense that there was a more curvy sort of model.
Yeah,
out there.
well, I think that goes in cycles anyway, don't you?
Well, look at it now, for example, where you have to look like, you know, pipe cleaners to get on the catwalk. You know.
Well, you know, it's that double. You know, it's true, but it's that double thing. I got blamed for anorexia. What are you doing?
I just did this face there. I could be a model now.
You could actually.
very
He's
much.
got the physique. Hasn't
Let's
he?
keep going. Oh, it's so true. This is about you. I want to talk about you.
Well, you
Because
know,
people said that-
I got blamed for anorexia in the 60s.
Blamed for it?
Well, blamed for causing it with other young girls. But so I always came out and said, look, I eat and eat and eat and eat, and I just don't put on weight. I bet you eat and eat and eat and eat.
I
and
love
don't.
food.
There we are.
And what-
I think
what
if you've
would
got
you-
a metabolism like I had and
Yeah.
like you have, you can eat food, and
Just
it's just luck of the draw, really.
And would you be eating regular? Like, you weren't having a little lettuce leaf in
Never. I actually ate more then than I do now, because as you get older, your metabolism changes.
Yes.
And I'm much more careful about food. I mean, I don't diet, but I eat sensibly, and I eat, you know, but then I would eat everything and, you know, I mean, I used to eat a big bar of chocolate every night in front of the TV if I was home.
You're offering hope to millions.
So, now it's again going through that thing. But there is a worry there, because if girls are dieting to be that thing, that is bad, because, you know, it causes terrible illness and it can cause death. So, I mean, there is a fine line, and, I'm always the first to come out and say that everyone shouldn't be thin. You know, we weren't all meant to be thin. I happen to be slim, as I'm sure you are, because my dad was slim.
Yeah.
You know, I just took his genes. So, but it's finding a comfortable weight that you feel comfortable with, but you know, and healthy eating.
What about your return to the modelling world? It was about a little over 10 years ago.
Yeah,
now. What triggered that,
1993.
Twiggy?
I got a phone call from a very, very famous photographer called Stephen Meisel, who's probably the most famous, one of the most famous Vogue photographers in America now. And he said, I want to photograph you, I want to do a spread for Italian Vogue, which was one of my favourite Vogues, because they print beautifully. Anyway, he talked me into it, so...
Did you
I
require
did it.
much talking into it, much convincing?
Well, I turned it down since 1970. I'd only done photographs if it had something to do with the production I was doing, if I was on stage, if I was acting. You know, because I've done about 7 films, and I've done lots of plays.
Yeah.
But as you say, the one thing if you say Twiggy, most people think 60s model.
Yes, yeah.
But actually, for me, my proudest moments are doing Broadway and doing... 3 years ago, I toured with Mrs. Warren's Profession, directed by Peter Hall. For me, that was a big achievement because that, you know, it was a lot of work and I love doing the plays. But I understand that it will never be as famous as that moment in 1966 where I was, you know, plucked from being a schoolgirl in Easton, you know.
And when you came back to the modelling world, were you nervous?
No.
What age were you? Can I ask the rude question on that?
Oh, in '93, I would have been, oh gosh.
Roughly speaking.
Mid-40s.
Mid-40s.
Yeah.
And you said...
Early 40s, yeah. But, yeah, 43.
You know, there's a lot of kind of women doing the rounds now who I kind of call the cut and paste generation because there's a bit of this and But you know, they don't look like real women. You look like a real woman. You're aging so gracefully.
Well, thank you. I try.
But doesn't she look extraordinary?
Thank you. And thank you. And I haven't had any work done. I worry about it. I agree with you. There's a whole generation of people who, yeah, exactly. Or scary.
But they look scary.
They look like the zombie group.
Come here. Did you ever? Thank you. Born with it. Did you ever consider? Tried surgery on that one. Did you ever think about? Did you ever think, geez, maybe a little bit of Botox, a bit of collagen might do the
never
job?
Botox.
Once.
I'm so anti-Botox.
Great. Why?
Well, I worry it's poison.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's botulism. So I'm very. I think you know how they find out that pills after 20 years. Oh well, we prescribe them, but now we found out that actually
we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think 20 years down the line they're going to find out. Where does it go? They say it disappears. Where does it go? It goes into your body. It must be your feet.
All these women with Botox toes. And then the toes don't show any surprise at all when you stand on them.
It's too scary. It's too scary. But you know, on the other hand, I do know people who've had little bits done, and if it makes people feel better, that's cool too. Yeah. But it's a personal decision. All I can say, if you're going to do it, just get somebody good.
Well, it's always a bonus. Always good to go. And what about any other surgery, you know, where, like lipo and all the other?
I think it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I, touch wood, don't need that, thank goodness. And I actually find any operation a bit scary, quite honestly. I've only ever had to have one that I had to have, you know, about 20 years ago. Not life-threatening, but I had to have an operation. And it's not very pleasant, is it? You know, they put you out. Why would you choose to, I don't know.
Just so people feel... And
all the things that happen in hospitals at the moment, it's just a bit scary.
It's scary to be Jesus out of me.
I think I'd rather have wrinkles.
I think... that's the point. But anyway, you also had an interest, Twiggy, in fashion design, didn't you? I mean, that was something that you wanted to kind of get into on the side, I think, really.
Well, I wanted to do that before I was discovered. That's what I wanted to be a designer.
Okay.
So... which is lovely because now, all these years later, I've gone into that. I do a range of clothes for a big mail order company that I love, and I get very involved with the design, with the fabric. I'm obsessed by fabric, by cut. And then, which is why I'm in Dublin, I went in, I'm very, at home I make all my bedspreads and my curtains. That's my passion, is sewing. So we've done a range of beautiful bed linen that we are launching at the Dunnes department store.
Dunnes stores, and that's why.
And I'm really proud of them, and I've got very involved in it. They're beautiful, beautiful fabrics.
You put a bit of thought into the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't. You know, sometimes they get kind of celebrities just to put a name on something. Yeah. But I can't do that because, you know, it's got my name on it. So and it's my passion. Good. Well, it's a good combination. I mean, I always say to my husband, if they ever put me in jail for anything, God forbid, but if they did, as long as I've got a sewing machine and some fabric, I'll be fine. You
say that, as long as I've got no sewing machine, I'll be fine.
I would.
Yeah. And you're back in Ireland, which I know you come here every so often, so you're no stranger to the country.
I love it.
Great.
It's a beautiful country.
Well, I'm really glad you made it along to the show tonight. It's a real pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for having me.
Twiggy, ladies. Thank you. Okay. Just to say, Twiggy there will be launching her new range of bed linen in Dunnes stores at Cornels Court in Dublin at 12:30 on Tuesday. So good luck with that. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Now, my next guest, ladies and gentlemen,